All these three cars are very well reviewed on YouTube, but I'm in a very unique and privileged position to say I own all three of these cars, the Model 3 Performance, Porsche Taycan, Ioniq 5N. All three are the kind of driver's choice. I've always been into cars, always what I would call a petrol head, and I've had my fair share of nice cars, Audi RSEVs, TVRs, BMW M cars, all that, but of course the last few years I'm very much into my electric vehicles. These three cars quench my thirst as a driver. I can go to a track day in any one of these three. But which one's best? What are the pros and cons of each? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you. I'll let you know what I like and don't like about each one of these cars, and then tell you which is my favourite. Of course, probably down to your personal preferences. So if you stick with me in this video, let me know in the comments below which one of these cars you like the most and what you would have. My name is Richard, and this is RSEV. Okay, I bet the comments are already starting to light up with, this isn't the latest Model 3 Performance. I know that I have owned the latest Model 3 Performance, I just don't have it here today. But if you've watched our channel before, I've done other reviews with the 2024 Highland Model 3 Performance, so I'm very familiar with it. This is the version which runs from about 2021 up until 2024. And then before that, there was what we call the pre-refresh from 2019 when they first arrived in the UK. And in fact, I picked up a Model 3 Performance on that very first day from West Drayton. Up there, I'm in the background of the fully charged video even, so there's other videos about that as well. So they have changed a bit over the years. Certainly the build quality and alignment, the early days where the panel gaps weren't so good, the paint wasn't so good, but certainly by the time you get to the 2021 cars on there, they were better made. You've got the different wheels then, a bit better efficiency because the heat pump came in. And then, of course, the 2024 Highland brings about the new headlights and new rear end, and crucially, adaptive dampers. So the ride was always a little bit firm on one of these, but the new 2024 cars brought in adaptive dampers and more refinement about it. So they've evolved quite nicely over the years. Let's look at pricing. So the Model 3 Performance at the moment is about £60,000 brand new. Used ones like this are a lot cheaper, from £20,000 even under for earlier cars. Porsche Taycan is obviously hugely expensive, new, up to well over £100,000 for a lot of them actually, but again, come down well in pricing. And the Ioniq 5N, about £60,000 new in the UK. So the Ioniq 5N, Model Y Performance, Model 3 Performance priced new at the moment, all quite similar. Taycan a lot more. However, my point here actually is on the used car market, all of these cars are now available for under £50,000. The Ioniq 5Ns are just coming under that price point now. Example, exactly like this one here. This Taycan are now under £50,000. This is a Sport Turismo, but the saloon Sport Turismo. And then the Model 3 Performances, well, you can get an early one from, say, 2019 for even like £15,000 now. In fact, probably even less than that. We run an old Model 3 Performance from 2019, which is now on 120,000 odd miles, and it's worth probably well under £15,000. But the Model 3 Highland Performance, the 2024 cars, are available between about 40 and 50,000. In the meanwhile, that's what an SL63 AMG does in the background. Notice the bonnet's up, having repairs, not usually going to be a thing with these. Under £50,000 used market now, which is faster? Well, Model 3 Performance, they do it in different ways, so let me try and explain, bear with me. So Model 3 Performance typically is quoted as about 3.2, down to about 3.1, 0 to 60. Usually hard to get quite that, it's usually a little bit more. It's a quick car. It's the lightest car here by far. So what it does do is quick, very pinpoint sharp, and it does feel the lightest car. The Taycan, there's a few versions. This one here is actually my favourite. This is actually just the rear wheel drive, the slowest one of the lot. And I like a bit of rear wheel drive purity. However, there's four wheel drive, then there's a turbo, then there's a Turbo S. And so if you get a Turbo S, is the fastest of the lot here, brutal. But actually a 4S, which I've had one for quite a long time before, in fact I've had two of those before, is actually, although on paper slower than Model 3 Performance, is actually head-to-head exactly the same. Done it, that and the BMW i4 M50 and the Model 3 Performance were just about identical when we tested them before. Then we've got the Ioniq 5M, which is obviously brutal. It's a heavy car, but it packs a lot of power. Now, on paper, this is slower than the Highland Model 3 Performance. However, in reality, it just isn't. I did a video with Matt Watson on CarWow where we drag raced an Ioniq 5N next to my 2024 Highland Performance, and the Highland Performance just didn't quite have it. The Ioniq 5N is the quicker car, despite the numbers on paper being slightly different. But like I say, they all do things in a very different way. So let's talk about each car in a little bit more detail, including some pros and cons. Model 3. I'll come inside now because it's starting to rain. So a big driver for me with the Model 3 is the software. It's so much better than the other two by miles. So even if you have an earlier 2019 Model 3, the software's updated and it's so much nicer to use than the software in each of the other two. Granted, no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto, but it doesn't need it. It's just so good. Plus the route planning is really good. You've got your choice of Amazon Music, YouTube Music, internet radios. It's all there. The mapping's great. Even just kind of looking around, you know, when you explore new places or syncing with your calendar or just putting in a new entry into the nav, and the route planning anywhere in Europe is just super good. So I always miss that, but also a couple of other key functions like dog mode. A prime example, and you see it in my other videos, we took our 2024 Highland Performance across to Ireland for holiday, this time last summer actually. Now, the dog has to stay in the car. The car then is on the ferry for, I think it's about 4 or 5 hours, could be longer, I can't remember now exactly, but the ferry to Ireland, the dog's in the car, but the climate control can stay running and keep the dog comfortable. If you've got a signal, you can even look at the dog from the interior camera here, it's very clever. But also in Ireland, I was surprised, most pubs don't like dogs in there. So when you go to eat in a pub or have a drink, whatever, you have to kind of leave the dog in the car quite a lot. Anyway, for us, if you have a dog, dog mode is invaluable. The other cars don't have it. Well, you can kind of use a utility mode in the Ioniq 5N. I can see some people typing now, but it's not really a proper dog mode, leaving a proper message on the screen. So software, and also one other key point with a Tesla, and that is the Tesla charging network. The car plans routes really well, and the Tesla charging network is super reliable, and you just turn up and you just plug it in and it just charges. You don't have to use an app to get the chargers going, and it connects and communicates within a couple of seconds. Bang, it's just charging and you're walking away. Whereas other cars, you're still trying to do payment at the pump. Sometimes there's a delay in the communication process. You see very clearly how many chargers are available, like I said, the planning. No, it doesn't charge the fastest out of these cars. In fact, the Model 3 charges the slowest, but it's the ease at which you know how many stalls are available, the routing is good, you're going to turn up, it's going to be working, you can see what facilities are there, and it's just easy to use no matter where you are in Europe. I would jump in this car now and drive to Italy without a second thought in the world, just knowing I can use the supercharger network and plug it in. Plus, a Tesla using the Tesla supercharger network is much cheaper than any car using their networks. Although, you know, with a Porsche, with a Hyundai, you can get loyalty cars to say Ioniq that makes it much cheaper. I can hear people saying that. You can, but then every Polestar, every Mercedes, every Porsche, every VW has gone to Ioniq because they get a car that makes it a bit cheaper. So therefore, the 6 Ioniq stores are often very busy. So I tend to not use them and use the more expensive ones that are available. Anyway, you see what I mean? Not the fastest charging car here. In fact, the slowest, but the Tesla supercharging network is very easy to use and a lot cheaper. I also love the fact that your phone is just a key very easily with the Model 3, and you can share and add new drivers, especially useful at somewhere like work here, where if a colleague wants to drive a car, I can just allow him access in seconds on the app, and it pops up on his app and he can just open the door and drive it, as easy as that. And then we come to the interior. Now, a lot of people don't like the interior of the Model 3. I do. I like the minimalism. I like the low dashboard. The visibility is good. It doesn't feel luxury. I'm not going to put that to it, but it is actually quite well made, especially the 2021 on cars, where they're a bit quieter, a bit more refined. And the proof is in the pudding that one of our cars parked, in fact, over there is called Miles, and he's done 228,000 miles in 3.5 years. And there's not a squeak in that car. Feels good as new. Slightly wrinkly steering wheel, but it's 228,000 miles. So it's simple, it's minimal, but what I do like is just 2 wireless chargers on the center console. Easy, good sensor storage, easy. It just all works, it's just nice. However, coming to the back seats, what we will find then for practicality is that it's a little bit limited. 4 adults can sit in, but your knees are quite high up and my feet don't really go under the seat. So let's get into some of the points that aren't so good about the Model 3, and that's one of them. 4 adults, okay for a bit, but it's not the best to be in the back of. And it's also just a saloon, which just doesn't have practicality to it. It's a big boot, absolutely is, and we've done family trips in these, like I say, and we've had all of us and luggage. It takes the volume of stuff, but that day you've bought something and it's going to box and it doesn't fit in, it's just a bit annoying. You can get very good roof racks from Tesla, a sensible price, which are nice and quiet. The volume is great and the seats do fold, but it's just that saloon practicality does limit things, and I'm one of those people that just finds it a bit limiting. A lot of people, doesn't matter, won't matter, but it is a bit limiting for someone like myself. Of course, let's not forget that if the saloon isn't good enough for you and you want some more comfort for rear passengers. There is of course Model Y performance, which offers a lot more space and practicality. The other things still apply, kind of how it drives, the software is all the same. So the pros and cons are relevant, but the Model Y is readily available under £50,000. Now I've seen some for about 30,000 actually, and that does bring more practicality to it. The Tesla Model 3 has got a pretty good usable front space for that bit of extra storage and practicality. Right, so then we have Porsche Taycan. Now, a few versions of this available, Saloon or Sport Turismo or Cross Turismo. This is a Sport Turismo. The Cross Turismo, as you can see, have got like little plastic arches here, and they've got like gravel mode. They actually sit a little bit higher up. This is a Sport Turismo, so it's like the estate version, and I'll show you a bit about practicality in a minute. It's not the biggest boot, but... And then this one is actually just the rear-wheel drive version, actually. I've had the 4Ss before, I've driven the Turbo Ss, which are horrendously fast. This is the slowest one, but actually, it is my favourite. It has a purity about it, so I'll come on to how it drives in a bit. So why do I keep kind of bouncing back to Taycans? Anyone who's watched our channel will see that I've had a few of these over years, and I often call them a bit of a guilty pleasure. So why is that? Well, I'll talk to you about how it drives in a minute, because that is one of my favourite things. But what else do I like about it? Well, I've got to admit, I just like how it looks. It's kind of sleek, a bit sexy, a bit aggressive, a bit like me. But it just has a presence about it. It feels a bit more special. I'm not a brand snob at all. Honestly, I don't go for the Porsche badge. I'm not into that at all. I buy clothes from, you know, discount stores, obviously. I think it's a good-looking car, and you know, I like having the Sport Turismo version because it does add a little bit of extra practicality. So, one of my favourite things about Taycan is how it looks. What else? The interior. So I really like it. There's a mixed bag though, it's not all good, so I'll come on to some not so good things, but compared to the others, it no doubt just has this premium feel. There's lots of different versions and specs available, of course, there's going to be variations, but good seats, really comfortable. There's different versions of the seats as well, but especially you get the multi-adjustment ones, then there's loads of adjustment, they're very comfortable, under thigh support. It just has a quality feel, you know, really nicely trimmed. This one's got the extra embossing here. That was an extra option. It's got vented seats, which was extra. So we're going to be careful with a Taycan is that it's very spec dependent. Lots of things are extra, not included. And that's where the Tesla scores well, because you get loads of stuff included. The dual chargers and now vented seats and now double glazing, all standard. Whereas on Taycans, most of this stuff is optional. Even folding electric mirrors are optional. In here, it's a plus point just for how it is to sit in and feel, and the quality of the interior. I like that. On a negative side, very spec dependent. Why more doesn't come as standard, I don't know. So when you're buying one, you've got to be very careful in expecting everything to be included when it isn't. So I'm going to put it as a negative because it should just come better spec as standard with a few options. I like the fact that usually you don't find two of these the same, but when you have to spec, you know, folding wing mirrors on a very expensive Porsche, that's not a good thing, I don't think. And the back of the Taycan's pretty good as well. Surprisingly, for 4 adults, it's pretty good. I'm sat here more comfortably than I was in the Model 3 Performance because there's actually a cutout in the battery, and it means that my feet are just lower down. So my knees aren't folded up, and I'm sitting comfortably in a good supportive seat. This is a 5-seat version, but as you can see, the middle seat is fairly slim. But actually, you'd be surprised how comfortable it is for rear passengers. And again, the quality feeling here. This one's got the big glass roof, but it just kind of looks and feels nice. It's pretty good quality. I mean, yes, there's slightly harder plastics about, but it does have that quality feel about it, especially, I think, with this two-tone leather, which, personally, I love it. In terms of practicality in the boot, well, this is the Sport Turismo, so we have the hatchback, and I can take the parcel shelf out. And it's got quite a long boot, and in this version, the seats all fold down as well. In fact, 3 ways, so it's pretty good. There's a little bit of storage underneath the back here, but nowhere near like the Tesla has. And this one's got like an extra mat in to just protect the bumper, but obviously that's not standard. So it's pretty reasonable, fairly spacious, but you can't really get many square things in because this actually slopes down like that here as well, so you can't fit kind of square boxy things in, but it's reasonable, it's okay. And there's actually quite a good sized trunk as well, which I can open from the key because unlike the Tesla, I have a key to go with this one. And then I do that little latch, and there's a pretty good front space. You can see actually I've got quite a big cable bag in here, and that fits in nicely. So I'd actually go to say that fits like a flight bag as well. So bigger than the Model 3s, I reckon. So What's not so good about the Taycan? Well, efficiency isn't typically amazing, but it's a bit better on this rear-wheel drive one. But not so good is the software. It feels pretty crude, pretty out of date. I do have Apple CarPlay, so that saves by that. I can use that, and if I want to use Google Mapping or Apple Maps or Waze, I've got the option to do all that. And in that mode, it's fine. But if I go back to the native nav, it's just pretty kind of slow, clumsy. I'd go, well, is it better than the Hyundai? Actually, I prefer looking at it. I think the graphics are marginally slightly better, but the software is not the strong point with a Taycan. For me, another not so good is the kind of charge port locations, actually, because sometimes it can be useful, but actually, especially on this one, when you pull up to a fast charger, this is the fast charger port. It's got a charge port on the other side as well for just AC charging, but this is your DC port. So you pull up to a fast charger, typically going in forwards, and you've got to mind the bottom of your front bumper down there. Then you get the cable, which is usually a big cable here, and you have to kind of plug it in here. So you have to kind of go like that and round, and then you let go of the cable and it can risk going onto your panel here. So typically, I just find it an inconvenient location. It'd be better off from one of either the front or the back corner, like most other cars. So I'm going to put charge port location as generally not very good. The exception to that is actually at home when I pull up my AC chargers there, and I can just kind of go like that on the other side. But I would move it basically if it was me. What else is not so good? It does charge fast on DC, very fast. Let's talk a little bit about the Ioniq 5N then. So very distinctive, especially in this kind of signature colour. This is a satin blue, but you can get greys and blacks and whites, but this is kind of the N signature colour. It's a very different beast to a normal Ioniq 5. Again, I've had normal Ioniq 5s, I've had Project 45, and they're okay, quite like them, but this is a different thing altogether. This is a proper engineered savage track car, but actually very capable on the road as well. So again, a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde type character, a bit like the Taycan, can do both rather well. The Tesla sits kind of a bit more in the middle of those two, but a pretty hardcore focus track car. I mean, look at the size of the wheels, look at the size of the brakes on this thing. You can choose 3 different brake sizes on Taycan, and actually most of them work quite well, but this comes as standard with these massive brakes, a very aggressive look. And you can never underestimate the size of the Ioniq 5. Although people think it's a hatchback, it is quite a big SUV type size. So that brings me on to some of the good points. I'll talk about the driving in a minute. Well, one is its practical size. So let me show you. So I'll get myself comfortable in the front here. Now it's manual adjustment on all the seats. You don't have electric adjustment or memory on this, but as long as you're not driving, changing drivers too often, it doesn't really matter. Nice to get a comfortable seating position. There's quite a lot of black going on here, and there's a steering wheel with lots of stuff. Obviously, it's like a games controller. Now, I've done another video about how this drives on the road and with the different drive modes that I set up. So if you want to see a bit more of that, check out other recent videos, because I do cover a bit more about how all these drive modes. I won't do that too much in this video. What I want to show you in here, though, is that, okay, the dashboard's nothing too sexy, but it's quite functional. Unlike normal Ioniq 5s, this center console is fixed at the front, but that's fine. I've got a wireless phone charger there. But like I say, one of the advantages of this car is its practicality. So that's me in a very good, comfortable driving position. Now let me show you the back. There we have it. Loads of knee room, loads of leg room. Oh, not a ton of headroom, but like, I'm okay, I'm comfortable. And it's the widest of the cars, so you can actually have 3 people sat quite comfortably. Couple of USB ports there, see folding seats, heated seats, even window blinds in the back. So it's still good for rear passengers. Comparable, I guess, to a Model Y. A Model Y also has a nice big flat floor and quite a lot of room, but actually a bit wider than a Model Y, and a sort of nice flat seat makes it quite easy. If you have to get 3 adults in here, it's not too bad at all. And of course, this extends to the fact it's a hatchback with a reasonable boot. So let me show you that. So that hatchback, folding seats, big wide boot. It's not that deep actually, it's fairly shallow. So something like a Tesla Model Y is deeper in the boot area, but it is wide, and generally you call it a very good practical car. So, good things about the Ioniq 5. Although it's a very track capable car, probably the most of these 3 by quite a long way, It can do 2 consecutive laps of the Nürburgring non-stop when the brakes don't overheat and the motors don't overheat and that kind of thing. It is the most practical. So that brings me on to other good things about this car. Well, the styling is a good thing, I would say. Like it or loathe it, it does divide opinions, but most people think, actually, this is pretty impressive that this came to production as it is. So, you know, points to Hyundai for the styling and being bold and distinctive with it. No, you know, if this is a bit garish for you, just go with like the grey colour, for example. It's a bit more subtle, but it is full on out there. And for me, well done Hyundai for being that brave. I think it's worked and paid off very well. Charging speed, like the Taycan, they're also very good, 800 volt system, so it also charges very fast. And aside from that, the Ioniq 5 comes as standard with things like the head-up display and a pretty good kind of autopilot driving assistance feature. But what is not so good about it? Well, let's go back to that. Every time I get in this car, the lane assist and the speed warning chime thing is on. Now, you can turn it off through the menu, or you can actually push and hold buttons on the steering wheel to turn it off, but you have to do that every time. It's just annoying. And people say, yeah, but that's modern, you know, legislation, you have to have it. Well, actually the modern testers, and so far the Taycan doesn't have it, so I'm getting them and it's saved that it doesn't just beep at me all the time. So that is a bit of a bugbear with me on this car. Also the start-stop button, you know, you shouldn't really need it, just get out and lock it. It should be a thing now. I don't really want a start-stop button, to be honest. Matrix headlights are not on this one either. I think they might be coming out on the very latest versions as we're now in 2025. I've not seen it myself yet, but I know on the normal Ioniq 5 they have come out of Matrix, so maybe that's going to come through. And then for me, the biggest sort of thing that, of course, yeah, lack of memory seats, by the way, they should put that in there as well. But the thing for me that I struggle a little bit with the Ioniq 5 is that it's kind of the way it makes. One thing I wish all Kia Hyundais would give attention to is the software. It looks crude, out of date, it's fairly clumsy to use, and so, oh, come on, it just seems a bit old. So if they could give some attention to that, would be great. What I do like in here though, separate climate control. Yeah, I mean, some people find that easier. I'm not bothered about having it kind of all saved with my profile like on the Tesla, but for some people having the separate climate buttons here is easier. The Porsche has some separate climate buttons, but the Porsche still has to go through the menu to change where the air vents are, for example, and here I can just move them. Let's talk about real world range that you can expect from each of these cars. Model 3 performance, real world, 270, 280, maybe 290 is what I've typically got from this, as long as it's a 2021 or onwards car. There are a couple of different battery versions, but the pre-2021 cars I normally say up to about 240, 250, because they've got a smaller battery and they don't have a heat pump, they're sufficient. But the newer ones, let's talk about a brand new one today, I would say really about 270, 280. I have done other videos with range tests on the Model 3 Highland Performance. In fact, I've done range tests on all the Model 3 versions before. Taycan real world range, it's going to depend on the battery and the drivetrain, but you're looking at really up to about 250 miles. This is a rear wheel drive, makes it a little bit more efficient and a little bit further, but with the big battery, that is still, it's really kind of 250 miles. You've got the smaller battery, more like 200 really. Of course, the wheels can have an effect, so these lovely big wheels will cost it a bit. Other big wheels, the smaller wheels are a bit more efficient, but what I've really found with a Taycan is it kind of doesn't matter so much what you do. It's never mega efficient. It never really changes the range that much. So you could drive it faster and big wheels, and it's still kind of about 230, 240, or you can try and drive efficiently, you might get 240, 250, you know, it doesn't change that much, whereas how you drive in a Tesla makes quite a big difference. So don't expect your 300 miles, it's not going to happen until you go to the very latest Taycans. Now, they have, at the back end of 2024, released a new version, so 2025 onwards, Taycan is now much more efficient and it's actually capable of some incredible range and even faster charging speeds. Now, I can add 50% of the battery in this in just 11 minutes. I've done that. Very quick indeed. But it's that efficiency. New ones now, much better, but of course much more expensive. You've got to go and buy a fairly new one, or a new one. Ioniq 5N, again, depends how you drive it, big wheels, cost and efficiency, big square shape. So I found at lower speeds and commuting, I could get some pretty good efficiency and range from it, but really on motorways, it does cost it because it's a bit more square. I'm going to put the range at, you could potentially get kind of 240 miles out of it. You're probably not generally doing much more than 200 out of this unless you're super trying. So of the real world range, the Ioniq and the Taycan fairly similar with that bit over 200 mile mark. Real world 220, 230, maybe 240. Taycan might be able to edge it slightly. At lower speeds this would edge it slightly, you know what I mean? But the Tesla will win the range comparison by like for like driving. I would say up to about 50 miles. So let's get it out for a drive. Now it's always a fun event with the Ioniq 5, but what I always notice straight away, like now, it's just turning circles, awful. The steering lock's dreadful. This reminds me, reversing cameras, not bad in the Ioniq 5N, quite a good clarity. I've got cameras front and back plus a bird's eye view. That's not bad. The Tesla has better cameras in terms of a bigger screen, I think a better image, rear and side, but it doesn't have any front cameras. The Porsche Taycan, the most expensive car here, awful cameras. Honestly, it's so distorted. You think, oh, I'm about to hit something, and you go, no, we're miles away from it. I really struggle with the cameras in the Porsche Taycan, the most expensive car here, and I think they're rubbish. Another cool feature of the Hyundai, this rear view mirror. Actually, I can flip that and it goes to a digital mirror. It uses the camera at the back. Now, normally I'd have it in normal mirror mode because it's a bit more normal, but if you've got passengers in the back and you can't see out the back, then flicking that, there you go, there you have it. That's a good little feature as well, actually. It deserves a point for that. Okay, let's film about how it drives. So I did another video about just kind of road driving in this and a bit more about how I kind of was starting to learn to configure the different modes in different ways that suited me. And I'm sure everyone's got things a little bit different because there are so many setup options in this car. And anyone who's been watching YouTube videos about this car will know all about its various track modes, and you can have rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, all these different throttle responses, damper controls, a lot of different setups in this car. So you've got to be a pretty kind of keen enthusiastic on that, but if you love gadgets, you love setup, honestly, it's there ready to go. What's it generally like to live with then? Because what you don't want is something that's super track focused like this, but then he just crashes around on the road all the time. And the good news is this doesn't. In its normal road mode, it is comfortable. It's still not, it's not wafty, it doesn't waft everywhere, but basically the dampers go very soft, and so you do get a little bit of travel and you do have a pretty comfortable ride. It makes for an easy car, and you know, I'm just in normal EV mode now. It's quite quiet, a little bit of road noise from those big tyres, but it's pretty good and it's pretty comfortable, and the steering's nice and light. In fact, the steering's still very precise. You can pin this car exactly where you want it to be, and it makes for a pretty pleasant, if not wafty, daily driver. It is comfortable enough. I would say compared to the Tesla Model 3, it is more comfortable than the earlier Model 3 performances, but the later higher Model 3 performances with the adaptive dampers, when they're in comfort mode, I'd say it's pretty similar to this. Yeah, along those lines, but the earlier Tesla's a bit firmer, a bit more fidgety. Although this is quite a big car, it is kind of quite square, so for me at least, I can pretty much see the corners of the bonnet, and that back there is a hatchback, so you can kind of feel all the different corners of this car. Now this is a bumpy section of road, and this is where if there was no traffic, well look, I might hit an end button there, and I might hit engine noise there, and I might change a paddle here. It does that, and it just goes absolutely berserk. There's some beeping and warning, of course. Again, there are ways to turn that stuff off, but nothing does this the same, and it's so convincingly like if someone was in this car and didn't know it wasn't a real engine and gearbox, honestly. But even then, I'm in mid damper setting, I'm feeling the road, but I'm not being unfairly kind of crashed around. If I go into full hardcore, it will be, then I can feel everything. And then I go back to just normal drive mode. In fact, I even go to eco, everything softens off and it goes a bit more normal, turn the engine noise off, and here we have a lovely soft car. The trouble is, when you do get a little stretch of country road, it makes me do this. Jesus. And there's your speed limit, you know what I mean? And so this is it, like, it's horrendously fast, but it makes me drive like I shouldn't drive sometimes. And that's my fault. I'm not blaming the car at all, but it kind of eggs you on, like, go on in, go a bit quicker, go on in. And it's like having a bit of a sort of naughty passenger with you, or someone a bit wild on a night out, you know, kind of can get you into a bit of mischief. So you've got to be self-controlled. Let me go back to, there you go, eco, comfortable. So I think you get the idea. For a big car, it doesn't feel it in terms of the steering is super precise. I can put it exactly where I want it. It's easy to live with. There's some more warnings because I was getting close to trying to show you. Yeah, you've got to kind of go straight in the car. First thing you do, turn off the warnings for the speed, turn off the warnings for the lane assist as well, because it tries to pull the steering wheel like it's doing there. I'm not saying you shouldn't have speed limit warnings, but it does it as soon as you go like 1 mile an hour, and you end up beeping so much, it's just annoying. And you just, yeah, so you do have to turn off the speed limit warnings. It's just the first thing you do every time, basically. Now, our Tesla Model 3 isn't doing a turn around this corner too easily itself, although there's a bit of a dip there. Well, I'd normally go into that, but it's a bit rutted. But this is where the turning circle of the Ioniq 5N is woeful. It's caught me out a number of times. So the Model 3 divides opinion. Not just because it's Tesla and the Elon Musk thing, we'll put that aside for a minute. I like having the technology, you know, the single screen works really well, the software, like I say, is great, but this isn't for everyone, you know, this sort of minimalism and everything saved to your profile and everything on the screen, including your climate and that, isn't suitable for everyone. Now, I have my climate auto, lights on auto, everything kind of works for me like that, and if I get in another Tesla that we have at work, then I'll have those same settings for me in that one as well. It carries through, it's great. So it works well for us. And for me, I like it. I like the low dashboard. But, as I say, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but let's just focus here on how the Model 3 drives. And that is that it does feel the most compact. It does feel the lightest. It's the most agile, you know, the steering's sharp. And so just in terms of that simple agility, I mean, they all handle very well, of course, but this just has that sharp steering, the agility, and its compact size. You can sort of thread it down a narrow lane easier than the other two. I can't adjust the dampers in this version, but the 2024 onwards, what we call the Highland performances, you can. And that means that you get a bit of more firmer, sporty mode when you want it. You can stiffen the dampers up, and then a more comfortable ride when you're just driving on the road like I am now. You've also got different acceleration modes, you do chill or sport, but a car like this one, I don't have adjustable dampers. So bear that in mind if you're looking at the Model 3, you've got that distinct difference. And those later 2024 ones are a bit more refined as well, a bit quieter inside, and crucially these seat bolsters are more supportive. But if you're looking at one like this, where I don't have adjustable dampers, what I find is that the ride is pretty firm. Now, don't get me wrong, like it's not tragic, it is a fast car, it has to have good body control. But compared to some other stuff, or compared to what you're used to, it could be firmer than some. But to be honest, if you're coming from an S-Line Audi or BMW 3 Series M Sport, it's not going to be unfamiliar to you, honestly. But if you're coming from Mercedes or something, then it will be a firmer ride than that. No single moment of delay with the throttle pedal with a Tesla, instantly fast, bang, it's there. I don't have to change modes, I don't have to turn the dial and switch a setting. If I want to just do that quick blast, it is there no matter what, as long as I've got it in the normal sport mode and not in chill. It is instant, and it corners and changes direction like a fly. And on the road is seriously all the speed, performance, handling that you need. It comes apart a little bit on track, like I've mentioned, like it's sort of, I've done track videos of this. This firmer ride then on track becomes a bit uncontrolled. It then it struggles a bit on track, you know, it doesn't have the two, it's trying to make one compromise here with one damper and spring setting, there's no adjustment, so it's a bit flawed on the road, and it's a bit compromised on the track as well. You can do laps on the track, but it's not, it can come apart quite quick. I did somewhere like Thruxton, very fast, 120 miles an hour cornering. In fact, you get up to about 140 at Thruxton, there's not a straight on it, and that's where you get bumps in the corner, can sort of upset it a little bit, but look, it's capable and very good for most drivers. Quite a nice neutral feel about it. Of course, what we normally do is just spend our days driving these on the road, and that's where the easier software does count. The ease of navigation, charging, all counts, and the ride's okay. The seats aren't that supportive on this version, but it's okay, and it's quite quiet. In fact, I think it's a bit quieter in here than the Ioniq 5N, but then the tyres aren't so wide. It's just very easy, you know, low down, doesn't feel big and unwieldy. It does the job. What I've just found, if I do lots of kind of long days, especially if it's back to back, and I do that, again, me personally, I do just do, you know, a bit of time in the car, then I tend to find that the seats just don't have enough, you know, there's no under-thigh adjustment here, I don't have enough adjustment. There's not a lot of adjustment in the Ioniq 5N, and in the Ioniq 5N they're a bit firmer, but they're much more supportive when you want to be held in place. Sort of sick on traffic here now, but the Model 3 on the road, look, it's very capable and it feels lighter than the others. Okay, so the Porsche Taycan on the road. It's probably got the biggest footprint of all these cars, but it feels the most kind of cosseted in here. But like I say, the key for me with this car is its suspension. It has 3 stages of adjustment, and it just has good travel in the suspension. In its comfort and soft settings, it's just very comfortable. It's got great travel and it really absorbs it softly, so it's quite rare that you ever get kind of jostled about in the car, you know. It kind of absorbs most stuff, it floats, it wafts. And actually in most day-to-day driving, that's what I like. You know, I'm just tired and getting home, and I like that. The steering feels nice. It still feels like quite a sort of sporting car, but I just like the balance of everything. I like that steering feel. I like seeing the bump and just waft over that bump without really feeling it. Just gently moving me around as the road moves is about all I've got, really. Even quite big bumps absorb very well. However, if I want to change modes, luckily this one, like a lot of them, but not all of them, have got this chrono dial here, and I can just turn that dial and it goes to sport. So this is kind of now a faster road kind of setting, still travel, but not quite as soft damping, and it's just kind of sported up a little bit. Sported up. My God. Anyway, sorry for my grammar. Making up new words. I don't know where that came from. And then I've got the next turn of the dial is Sport Plus, and then I've got an individual setting I can use as well as a range setting. But what's quite good with this is I've got a bit of sound there now because I've got the sound box, but that's not standard. It's just a dial. I don't even have to look away from the road, and I can just turn this dial. I'm instantly in different settings for steering weight, throttle response, noise, dampers, suspension height, you know, boom, done, without having to kind of go through settings. Or even with the Ioniq 5, you can change on the steering wheel, but there's a lot going on with that steering wheel. So I find this quite nice and easy to switch around the 2 different modes. Feel sporty, got that mode. Just cruising, got that mode. Track day, got that mode. Bang, 3 settings done. I like that. And there's an individual one you can set up. But as I go along this road now, it's just quiet, refined, soft, comfortable. And actually this is most of my driving, and this is mostly how I like to be in the car driving. Great. And this is why I like it. It's personal choice, you know, it's what I like. Maybe I'm getting older, maybe I just like the comfortable suspension now, but I've always been fascinated by suspension. A good suspension when you go, oh, there's a bump, and then it goes, and you don't even feel it. You know, fantastic. So I appreciate that with this car, as well as its positive steering, the feel of it. I like the size of the steering wheel, I like the way it's weighted. And as we come here to do our little U-turn as we film, the Tesla Model 3 in front of me there, really, 3-point turn. I think this is going to go around in 1 because the steering lock in the Taycan is fantastic. There he goes, I'm waiting for him, he's now done his 3-point turn. And look, I'm round in 1 quite happily and easily. So big car, easily manoeuvrable. Okay, let's summarise and pick a favourite. Tesla, lightest, sort of easy to live with, very agile, very fast, great software, easier sort of charger planning and network, and the screen's easy to use. You've got dog mode and camping mode. So software, and it's just not too heavy, it's just easy. It's a great daily. If you're doing a lot of miles, I think this would have to be the pick of the bunch, because with that route plan and everything being so much better than the other cars here, it's got to be the favourite for that. Especially if you're doing lots of miles around the UK or travelling around Europe, it just makes it easier. And especially if it's your first electric car, it's probably the easiest one to deal with. The Taycan, no, it's a big thing on the road, but it's fairly compact in size, but 4 adults is fine. It feels luxury, it feels refined, it's smooth, and yet it's still track capable. You can go around Thruxton in this and then just waft along home in what feels like luxury and refinement and comfort. So I love it, it's great. The Ioniq 5N, what a piece of engineering. You know, it's such a hardcore track car. We've seen videos of this doing 2 hard laps on the Nürburgring, flat out. Didn't bat an eyelid, no overheating brakes or anything like that. A fantastic thing, it's amazing. And yet still a daily car, still good enough to be daily. It's not wafty, but it's comfortable enough, it's practical enough. A couple of irritating bing bongs and a complicated wheel and loads of setups. You've got to like all that kind of fiddling and the setup side of stuff, really. But a lot of people do. I quite like that stuff, and it's got all that for you, so plenty to not get bored with. An amazing bit of engineering, really. Which one am I driving at the moment? Well, actually, it's the Taycan. And it won't be everyone's cup of tea, but I love, for me personally, the sort of comfort and waft of this. I have to say, if I do a lot of miles, I'd have the Tesla. If I was going to do more track days, I'd have the Ioniq 5N. The main thing with the Ioniq 5N is I'm kind of worried about how it makes me drive. It makes me kind of drive like a bit of a hooligan, and my driving license is very important to me, and I can't help myself with this car but drive like a bit of a nutter. So I'm kind of like going, better be cautious. This one makes me waft along in relaxation. I've got the luxury though of actually, if I'm doing a lot of miles today, tomorrow, I tend to jump in our Model 3 over there, which is just a Model 3 long range. Because it's efficient, it goes further, I actually get free supercharging on that car, but that's why that car's done 229,000 miles in 3.5 years. It's fantastic, it's never batted an eyelid, never gone wrong, it's utterly reliable. I mean, we've done other videos about the lack of maintenance we've had to do on our Tesla Model 3 over there, so I've got the luxury, if I'm doing lots of mileage, I can jump in another car and not do that in this. I wouldn't have this car if I was doing high mileage every day. Great road trip car, fast charging, all that, but it would just get expensive and it's more difficult. So it depends, as you can see, how you're going to be using the car and what your preferences and priorities are. So there's no distinct winner, depends what your priorities are. What I will say to you is they are all fantastic cars. They really are just fantastic bits of engineering and amazing. So let me know in the comments below what you think, what you've had, what you think the pros and cons are yourself of each one of these. I'll have to summarise it quite quickly in these videos, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. In the meantime, I'm Richard, this is RSEV. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we can see you on another video very soon. Make sure you hit that little like button and comment, always helps with the algorithms. And then hopefully we'll also see you on another video very soon. Thank you for watching.